What if getting rich wasn't, the whole point? Today, we're diving into a really different way of thinking about wealth and money, called Sjaqawarra Stewardship. And honestly, it might just change how you see everything.
And really, this one quote, it sets up everything we're going to talk about. It's from Aratwa Tarraqhavvezz, the Sjaqawarra family's accountant. We do not say rich, we say rooted. It's a beautiful thought, right? But what on earth does that actually mean when you're managing a fortune this size?
Yeah. So what does rooted look like in practice? Well, it looks like 4.25 billion US dollars. That's the family's net worth, roughly. So how do you square a philosophy of being rooted with a number that big? That's the puzzle we're going to piece together.
Okay, first up, a $4 billion philosophy. Let's get into how the Sjaqawarra actually think about and structure all that wealth.
Here is the absolute core principle. We do not hoard wealth. We circulate it. This is not about money just sitting in some bank account collecting dust. It's about keeping it moving, constantly, with a purpose. This idea of circulation is the key to, well, everything.
Now, to get into their books, you gotta understand their money. It's called the MJA, or Mja'arun. It's built to reflect real, sustained value, not crazy speculation. All you really need to remember for this is that one MJA equals about $4.25.
So how do you organize a fortune that big? Well, they structure it around something they call the 4 living threats. This is the whole framework for their family portfolio.
They see their wealth as being woven together from 4 different threads. First, you've got living assets. This is the physical stuff, the foundation. Homes, land, temples. Second are the active enterprises. These are the businesses that actually bring in money. Think cuisine houses, media channels. Third, there's the sacred and trust holdings, which is a fund for future generations that they are never allowed to liquidate. And finally, liquid reserves for emergencies and opportunities, like sponsoring a student's education.
And here's how all that breaks down. Out of their total portfolio of about 1 billion MJA, the biggest chunk, 42%, is in those living assets. That's the rooted part we were talking about. The businesses make up 31%, the trust is 19%, and they keep a pretty lean 8% in liquid cash. You can see this whole structure is built for stability, not just for aggressive, fast growth.
And you have to understand, the whole point of this financial ecosystem isn't to grab power. It's all about continuity, making sure future generations have everything they need to thrive, a roof over their heads, food on the table, and knowledge.
Okay, so that's the big picture philosophy. It sounds great, right? But what does it actually look like day to day? How does this idea of circulation work in a real-world event? To figure that out, we're going to look at the perfect case study, a $1 million wedding. This gives us an incredibly detailed peek at their accounting principles in action.
The grand total for Mja'arun and Sarah's wedding came out to about 1.06 million US dollars. Yeah, a huge number, but how they got to that number, that's the real story here.
So their first rule of accounting is actually super simple, but it changes everything. Ownership changes cost. The wedding took place at a temple the family already owns, so the venue rental was 0. But as Aratwa says, 0 is still a number, and it matters. They make a point to formally recognize the value of the assets they already have instead of just taking them for granted.
All right, let's roll up our sleeves and do a little financial deep dive here. We're going to look at the anatomy of a cost and break down this $1 million budget.
So check out some of these major costs. The food and feasting alone for 420 guests over 3 days cost around $323,000. Equipment, sound systems, lights, that kind of stuff, was another $174,000. These are real costs where money is circulating out into the community to vendors and suppliers.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. Take a look at the handmade garments, a total of about $264,000. And that's not just paying for fabric, it's about formally valuing the incredible skill and time of the artisans who made them, even when those artisans are family.
And this right here, this captures that idea perfectly. We don't discount family, we respect them. If your cousin is a master tailor, their work isn't considered free. It's accounted for, it's valued, and it's paid. The wealth circulates within the family itself, honoring what everyone brings to the table.
This super detailed way of accounting, it applies to everything. And I really do mean every last detail. Which, of course, brings us to this. And yes, they definitely counted the cake.
Yeah, the cake.
The multi-tiered ceremonial wedding cake, with all the specialized sugar work and traditional symbols, cost about $38,000. It's a wild number, but it just goes to show how precisely every single piece is valued.
So, what's the big lesson here? From the billion-dollar portfolio all the way down to a $38,000 cake? Well, it all comes down to this final idea: money with the roll. Just look at these two numbers side by side. On the one hand, you've got the family's net worth of over $4 billion. On the other, the wedding cost of about $1 million. When you see it like that, the $1 million price tag doesn't feel like some crazy splurge. It feels like a very deliberate allocation of their resources.
And this, right here, is really the heart of it all. As Aratwa says, money becomes peaceful when it has a role. In this way of thinking, wealth isn't some chaotic thing you just have to hoard. It's a tool, and every single MJA is given a job to do. Whether that's funding a business, securing land for the future, or, celebrating a huge family moment.
So what does this all leave us with? It's this idea that finance, family, culture, and legacy, they aren't all separate boxes to be managed. They're threads to be woven together. As they say, we do not untangle, we braid. And that just might be a more profound and maybe more peaceful way to think about the role of wealth in all of our lives.